So Lucy and I are both from the MFL Student Mentoring Project, and we're also both doing independent consultancy work on SHAPE, which I think most people here have a better idea of what the MFL Student Mentoring Project is, but maybe not so much SHAPE. We'll talk through both, but just as a sort of immediate overview, the MFL Student Mentoring Project is funded by the Welsh Government, and we work on tackling the 20-year decline of uptake in languages across Wales. So we're very much there to support the multilingual ambitions of the curriculum for Wales, but also to tackle some of the issues around languages and the way that they're viewed in Wales and really across the UK. So things like the gender gap, where we have a lot more female students deciding to take languages than we do male. We also look at things like BAME, because we have a lot, far less BAME students who go on to take languages. Really, that's just with the aim of increasing access to all languages. So regardless of the background that students are from or the grades that they're getting or anything like that, for us it's really important that everyone has the ability to go on and study languages if it's something they want to do. It's also about broadening perspectives. So often languages are couched around careers and the way that they can help us improve the economy and diplomacy and things like that. And whilst we do tackle that, we're also very keen to show that there is a much broader spectrum of reasons why kids should be taking languages and why they're so crucial. So we look a lot at well-being. We look a lot at connecting languages with other subjects, as the curriculum for Wales aims to do, and really just about broadening this perspective about where languages can take you. If we go on to the next slide, Liz. Thank you. So just as a sort of concrete overview of what the project looks like now, we started in 2015, but from that point we have grown, quite frankly, exponentially. We are now a partnership between 5 Welsh universities, so that's Cardiff University, which is where we're based as a team, and we kind of lead the project. But we also work with Swansea, Aberystwyth, Bangor, and most recently Trinity St David's. There we partner with those universities in order to take postgraduate and undergraduate students, train them up as mentors, and then send them into our secondary schools. So there's about 200 secondary schools in Wales, and we've worked with over 100 of them. This year alone, we've had about 25 new schools, which has been really fantastic. Some of them we've kind of worked with in the first year and they've come back now. Some of them because this year, given the COVID crisis and the reason why we're doing this online and not in person, we've been able to have a much greater reach in terms of geography. So we're reaching schools in sort of the Wrexham area and in Pembrokeshire, which is just a bit further out for us from where we've been able to reach before, which is great. We have trained hundreds and hundreds of mentors. This year we've trained about 120 and we placed about 90 mentors from each of those universities. And for our mentors, again, we don't just take from the MFL or Modern Foreign Language departments within universities. We're really keen to spread out into other departments and to sort of showcase the different types of linguists there are in HE institutions. So this year we have some medics, we have archaeology students, we have people doing like biomedical science and things like that. So really just to show that languages feature everywhere and we're all linguists and we all have a passion for those languages. We then work with the 4 education consortia, which we partner with a lot through the Global Futures Initiative from the Welsh Government. They're really fantastic for helping us reach the schools. So the schools that we work with are not schools who have better uptake, although in Wales, no one has good uptake compared to other countries. But we really focus on schools that are really struggling just to set up a GCSE class. So there we're trying to encourage more students to actually go and take the GCSE so that we can increase those numbers. For our students as well at university, it's also really important that they're connecting to their local area. So we find that because there's such an issue with the pipeline of students from Wales, a lot of the students who we work with who do come from language departments are actually from England or Northern Ireland, or much further afield. We have lots of students from Poland, we have students from Saudi Arabia and things like that. So for us, it's about encouraging them to understand more about Wales, understand more about Welsh bilingualism, and to really use that as a way to encourage them to sort of situate themselves here and understand the language landscape for where we're working. I'll move on to talk a little bit more about the mission of the project, which is really, really key to what we do, because we're very, very mission focused, doggedly so, to be honest. For us, multilingualism is the absolute core of what we do. We don't showcase any language in particular, so we're not interested in just talking about French, German and Spanish. We are interested in every single language under the sun. We want to talk about Swahili, we want to talk about sign language, we want to talk about Tagalog and Thai and all these other languages. We want to showcase dialects within different languages and show that there's a multiplicity even within one language. So for us, making sure that we are not partnering a mentor up with a school that has exactly the same language combination, where they might fall into a kind of tutoring role, where they're just teaching them bits of grammar or vocabulary. We're not interested in that. Lots of other projects do that really, really well. So that's not the goal of what we're doing. Instead, it's about, like I said, this kind of perspective shift and opening their minds to the multiplicity of language learning. And for us, showcasing different languages as equals, really importantly, is the core to our kind of multilingual approach. I've touched on inclusivity, but I'll just kind of reiterate that because it is so crucial to what we do. For us, it's really important that any child recognises that they can learn a language. If they go on to do the GCSE, which is the goal, that's great. And if they don't, but they decide to go and do some language learning at home, then that's also really fantastic. If they're using Duolingo, then that's an absolute thumbs up from us. For us, then it's always about this idea of motivation. It's about finding that intrinsic motivation. Instead of saying, oh, you can do the GCSE and you'll get a qualification for it that will lead you on to a career, that's extrinsic. For us, it's about finding something that's intrinsic, the very sense of self. What kind of person do they want to be, and how can languages facilitate that? It's also about aspiration, primarily for higher education, but also in other kind of ways, such as what kind of person do you want to be. So we really want them to aspire to see themselves going on to study any subject and including languages within that. Languages feature in everything that we do. And SHAPE really shows us that, which I'll talk about in a minute. But this idea of aspiring to go on to higher education and seeing university as a place that they can actually occupy, and having a student there who is a role model is really, really crucial. Finally, then partnership, again, another really important point for the project. We have partnerships on multiple levels, really. We partner with, obviously, with schools, with different universities, with the education consortia, but we also try and partner our students up with their teacher that they're working with to help them facilitate some, additional learning, some outside of the curriculum kind of working, and to really boost their enthusiasm for the subject when potentially, departments can feel quite downtrodden, especially if there are only one colleague in the department for the entire school, which we do have a lot in Wales. So for us, it's about kind of generating these partnerships, getting a community together. For us, it's important that our students who are mentors really group together, they work together, and that they go on to kind of generate all of that enthusiasm and then spread it out as far as possible. Just so that even with all the negativity that comes around languages and that 20-year decline and all of the issues and all of the challenges, the project remains really, really positive, and that we're doing really fun things. and we're really framing languages in a fun and interesting way that is accessible. It's also worth saying as well that, as I've mentioned, that Welsh is really important in what we do. We've run this project in different ways in England, and Welsh doesn't feature there quite so much, although we did bring it in. But Welsh is really, really important. So having that bilingual foundation, which we then use as a launch pad to talk about other languages, is absolutely crucial. Okay, I'm going to talk about shape now. So we'll shift a little bit and focus on some of the other points about shape, and then Lucy's going to bring them both together. So SHAPE is a new name and a new project looking at social sciences, humanities and the arts. So SHAPE stands for that, social sciences, humanities and arts for people in the economy. So that P and E is really important because it sort of shows the way that we're looking at those subjects. Again, it's about a framing. So those subjects help us to understand ourselves, others, and the world around us. It's very much focused on people. And they also provide us with methods and forms of expression, so particularly with things like the arts, but also, with language is a crucial part of that. And it helps us to build a better, deeper, more colourful, and valuable life for everyone. Again, so this sense of multiplicity and inclusivity that is really crucial. So I'll talk a little bit about the school's programme that Lucy and I are running currently, and then I'll talk about the mission a little bit more of SHAPE. So the school's programme, which we're launching this year, we're very, very excited about, is really a pilot project to see how we can start to bring SHAPE into schools. So SHAPE is a much larger umbrella term, does lots of different things. We're focusing on the sort of secondary school level and particularly Key Stage 3. So we're working across all 4 nations and not just in Wales. That's really crucial because obviously those nations have 4 different curricula, which means that we're going to navigate that. We find it really crucial that we kind of bring in all of those different curricula, but also that we're not sat within it. We sit alongside it and support it, but we're not there to, talk about things that are particularly within one curriculum and not another one, for example. We're going to be working with 8 schools, so it is a pilot. That's 8 schools across the whole of the UK, so 2 for each nation. And we're really keen to showcase each of those nations and have them be brought together as equals, regardless of the size and the number of schools that are in each of those nations. We're also really focused on making sure that the teachers that we work with are from different departments. So in each school, we'll be working with 2 teachers, and they'll come from different departments, and then from different departments within the different schools as well, just so that we can showcase as many different subject areas and be as SHAPE as we possibly can. So the programme is split into 2 sections. The first one is to do some teacher CPD, so develop their skills around SHAPE, help them understand what SHAPE is, how to think SHAPE, and how to draw in all these different subjects. Obviously, that works very well in Wales with the curriculum for Wales that's coming in. It's very much aligned with that by drawing in different subject areas. We're then going to be training them to deliver 3 workshops that are based around specific objects. So we currently have masks, shoes and trains as our 3 objects, and they'll each have a workshop that goes around them. We'll train the teachers up to deliver and facilitate those workshops. And then we'll analyse the sort of attitude change that happens both within the teachers, but also within the pupils that we'll be working with. So it's quite an innovative way of doing something. SHAPE's trying to push the boundaries on different subject areas and how we can connect them up. And we also want to trial this idea of teacher as facilitator, and much more akin to a sort of mentoring role than necessarily a strict teacher role. Teachers in their actual practice move along that continuum quite a lot, but we want to sort of see how it works when they're much more of a facilitator and a mentor within these sessions, and not just someone standing at the front giving all the information, but really allowing it to be learner-led, again, which is much more in keeping with the curriculum for Wales. So a little bit more about the mission then of SHAPE. It's really about increasing the visibility of these subjects. So we know it very well with languages, that often they're just kind of misunderstood and not as visible on the curriculum, in the timetable, in media, than they should be. And, whenever they are showcased, it's around the decline and things like that. So it's kind of, it's about having a really positive visibility around languages, and social sciences and humanities and the arts. It's also about making all of these subjects really relevant and having that personal connection. So we've specifically chosen those three objects, masks, shoes and trains, because they're incredibly mundane. Shoes are everywhere. We're all wearing them. We've probably all been on a train and they crisscross the countryside, and are all around the world. And then masks are incredibly relevant to what we're doing right now. So we're tracing them from kind of the theatre, personal expression, protest, and also mass as protection. So really just to show that they are incredibly relevant. And then the way that we go about addressing those is about increasing the skills that they have, that pupils have, and kind of getting them to see these subject areas and these objects as relevant to themselves, so that they can envisage themselves taking it and going on to do GCSEs, degrees, etc. In those subjects. We're then also, of course, kind of in dialogue with STEM here. So that's really crucial. Shape is essentially all the subjects that don't come under the STEM umbrella, which makes them feel like they're at odds. But it's really important that we frame it in a way that is not combative, but is actually in dialogue, so that STEM is there to help with shape, and shape is there to help with STEM. And again, you know, an object like masks shows that really, really well, because there is an element of, you know, science within it, but then there's also the human element of it, and what does it mean when you're wearing it? So for us, having that dialogue with STEM and having a way to talk with STEM and to frame it so that students are not focused just on STEM is the only thing that's going to get me somewhere, but they understand the spectrum of subject areas as much more inclusive and something that all works together and all fits together, and that we can all be moving between. It's also about recatalyzing these subjects, so social sciences, humanities and the arts, really re-energizing them, and getting students to see them as important, because there has been a bit too much of an emphasis on STEM to the detriment of other subjects. And for us, it's about just readdressing that balance so that it is a dialogue and it's not one-sided. So for us, it's really crucial that shape is kind of a way that we package and think about different subject areas in a new and innovative and interesting way. And we're doing that through the schools programme, through things like facilitation and object-based learning. I'm going to pass on to Lucy now, who's going to talk a bit more about how the two kind of come together, how we're using different methodologies to bring the two things together.
Thanks, Tallulah. So yeah, I think Tallulah's outlined really clearly there what the two projects are trying to do. And what I want to try and do is briefly talk about where I think the connections are and why I think actually languages is absolutely at the heart of shape. And then I want you guys to actually go away and do an activity, because I think the best way for you to experience the kind of light bulb moments that we've been experiencing during this journey, where we have come to this conclusion that shape and languages are completely intertwined and embedded in one another, is for you to have a go at it and to experience the kind of learning experiences that we are shaping for shape and for language learning. So I just wanted to set it out that these are areas where we feel there is a commonality of approach in what we're trying to do across shape and across languages. So we are trying to change mindsets and attitudes. So this is actually really about behavior change. This is about a psychological, social, cultural change in behaviors and attitudes and understanding of different subject areas. So the reason that the British Academy actually decided that they were going to launch SHAPE was, and being the social scientists that they are, they went away and they did a survey. They thought, yes, we need to quantitatively and qualitatively decide that, well, show that SHAPE subjects are under threat or have low public perception, low public value, so on and so forth. And what came back from that survey was a very clear qualitative and quantitative analysis that nobody understood what social sciences were other than sociology. So I think it's a really clear indication of kind of the common battle that we're facing, where languages are considered to be transactional and functional and not culturally embedded. So where this, this public perception, the narratives and the discourses that Tallulah has alluded to are giving perceptions that are very negative about shape and language subject. So we need to reframe that. We need to actively change behaviours towards them. To do that, we need to challenge people's frames of reference. So all of these different things that are telling us that shape and languages are worthless, not worthwhile, not relevant to me when I'm sat in South Wales in Bridgend. And what is my personal connection with them? I don't have one. So it's really about saying to everybody, challenge the media, challenge the literature, challenge your friends, challenge your family, and think about why you think the way you do. Okay, so really, again, that behavior, that psychological change that we're trying to promote by emphasizing the role of self-reflection. It is about the learner. Again, if we want to promote change, if we want to get young people to behave differently, we need to make it about them. So it's all about the learner. It's absolutely based in motivation, this kind of battle between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, where we've got all these extrinsic push things and pull things that are saying, don't do shape subjects, don't do languages, or do them, but do it for this reason that I'm completely disinterested in because I don't want to become a translator or a teacher. Again, a massively reductive discourse. We're saying, actually, where's the intrinsic motivation? You will therefore, if you have this and you find this in yourself, the resilience and the inspiration actually to go on and carry on that journey. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people that are going to commit lifelong to a persona, and in both academically and professionally and personally, that understands the value of languages and looks for them everywhere. It's about dynamism and interactivity. It's about bringing all of this to life. Where does it touch me in my life? Because then it becomes really relevant. It's about transformative moments. So those moments, we call them aha moments regularly when we talk about mentoring theories, but those moments where you really are prompted to shift your perspective, to look at something differently, and it has long-lasting change. So it's a moment in time that has long-lasting repercussion. And then within SHAPE, we've started to construct a methodology around modes, methods, and mindsets. Modes being the literature, the films, the poetry, the artwork, the museums, all these different artifacts almost that you interact with daily. The methods being the way that we analyze them. So is it statistical? Is it anthropological? Is it ethnographic? What are the different methods that we are using to analyze those modes of expression, those modes of being? And what are the mindsets that underpin them? Back to frames of reference. Why do I think the way I do? And how am I going to change it? So we are developing this framework at the moment, and it's a really exciting time. But that's just kind of a really brief outline for you. So what I wanted to do now was to set you an activity. So there's obviously this link, and Tallulah, maybe you could pop this in the chat just for accessibility's sake. And we're not going to give you 10 minutes because I'm conscious that we've actually run over and we've only got 45 minutes for this session. So maybe we'll give you more like 6, 7. But what I want you to do is I want you to watch the videos that are on the left-hand side of this Padlet. They are all about international campaigns for wearing masks as protection during coronavirus, okay? There's Russia, there's Italy, there's Iran, and they're all very different. They're all, watch the first 30 seconds, because most of them are about 30 seconds, but there are a couple that are a bit longer. But I ask you to watch the first 30 seconds of each of them. Look at the different categories that we've put on that Padlet, the different things that we are kind of asking you to think about when you watch those advertisements. And I want you to consider in particular, where do languages and shape intersect? Can we identify moments, or are they so absolutely intrinsically intertwined that it's not moments, but it's a whole way of being? And how do such activities increase understanding of shape and multilingualism or languages, and as individual ideas, disciplines, subject areas. And again, I come back to that connectivity. How do they demonstrate that these things are absolutely interconnected? Okay. Right. Let's give it 5-6 minutes. Has everyone got access to the Padlet? Has everybody managed to open it up? Shout now or forever hold thy peace. Excellent. Jonathan is putting his thumb up. Rachel's nodding. Ara's got a thumb up as well. Cool. All right. We'll take a 5-minute pause for you to do that. I'm going to bring up the Padlet so I can have a little look, and then we're going to come back for a discussion. And I'd really invite comments. I want this to be a discussion. I'd really invite comments from the floor about the activities. Lovely. So yeah, I'm glad that I hope you enjoyed the activity, and I hope you took a couple of different things away from something that is really quite simple, but very sophisticated depending on what degree you take it to. So I also think when we're creating these activities, we are targeting the resources we're working on at Key Stage 3, but the ways that we could build them up, take them down for different age groups is really, really important. So I just wanted to kind of, looking at this Padlet, think, right, let's look at language. What about the lack of language? What about the different languages that are used relevant to different cultures? Let's think about comedic body language, which is a language of itself. Let's think about contextualized language. And let's think about how language is targeted at different people, different groups of people, this segmentation of language. I think that's super important. If we think about social sciences, I can't get away from this sense of collective responsibility that is being kind of constantly pushed upon us. And there's an ethical imperative behind this, which again is really, really interesting. And I come back to this segmentation of communities. Look at the way that it has been drawn out to appeal to certain groups of people, in particular that footballer one. I think the footballer one is it's just fascinating on so many different levels. If you then look at the art side of it, we're looking at animation, we're looking at different types of music. I love the Iranian one. I just think in terms of a communicative showcase it's just fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating to me. And then we've got the counter opposite, which is this pop music. And I just find it's just endlessly fascinating to me, the way that we can mobilize different art forms for different purposes. So we've got the visual arts there, and then we've even got digital coming in there. So we're starting to think more about STEM. How have they put that animation together, et cetera, et cetera. And then it goes without saying that the humanities are kind of interweaved across the whole shebang. So I suppose what I wanted to say just in kind of conclusion is that I think there are a lot of successes that we can associate with this approach. And, the evaluation of our project will be the proof of the pudding. It's all about agility. It's about developing empathy, and something that we're using in the new curriculum called what's it called, Tallulah? What does Anna always call it?
Essence of learning.
Essence of learning. We get to the essence of learning through all of this. It's about skillful expression and manipulation and understanding that skillful expression is something really, really particular, really nuanced, and really valuable. It's about curiosity and it's about connectedness. So these are all of the successes that I see coming out of this. There are absolute challenges, and you've already alluded to one of them: siloed approaches to teaching, absolutely necessitated by the way that the curriculum is constructed as much as anything else. How do we get away from that? I've put as my second point competitiveness. Again, Ray, you alluded to this, and I don't think it's a quick solve. I think it's a really, really long journey to bring things together. We need to reframe that dialogue with STEM. That is not going to take 2 minutes. We need to increase public perception, because there's a huge element of, parents, siblings, peer-to-peer learning that needs to happen here. And there's a really intrinsic challenge just in value. And I think I need to say no more about that. So I just wanted to leave you with this idea that, COVID-19 has thrown up a whole bunch of challenges, which are going to challenge us for the next however many years, dare I say decades. But I think it has done something in highlighting to us the value of shape subjects, the value of languages, and has actually brought into question the ways that and means through which shape subjects and languages, engage with educators and the public. So yeah, I just want to say that I think there is space for this discussion now more than ever. So it's why we take it upon ourselves to carry it forward.